that NAR has is really emphasizing federal fair housing this year, guys. It's like they're a huge objective, and the reason for this, and I had all these great slides and all these great statistics on this, is because they did this big study that indicated that there is a lot of illegal steering going on with realtor members. The study it was a study of they had 25 testers, they called them, that were sent in undercover to talk with realtor members about wanting to buy a property. And these realtor members were from all sorts of brokerages. They had like 7 or 8 of them, but they were from like Coldwell Bankers, and they were from Remax, and they were from Sotheby's, and they were from about 4 or 5 other different companies. And they would send these testers in, and they would send some testers in who were white, and some testers in who were African American, and some testers in who were of Hispanic origin, and some people were of Korean, I think, or Chinese. I mean, they had all these different ethnicities and backgrounds going in. And the way these people were being treated was very, very differently. And some of the things that were said, they were shocking. They were shocking to me. I mean, you know, the things that they would say, for example, to some of the, you know, the white people that were coming in there versus the minority people that were coming in there were very different. So if a minority was coming in, they wouldn't say anything about a neighborhood, whereas if a white person came in, they would say, you better, you know, want to look into the crime statistics in that neighborhood before you look there. Or I didn't even show you anything in that neighborhood because I didn't figure you wanted to be able to walk down the street and buy crack. So, I mean, I'm not kidding. I mean, some of this stuff was just mind-blowing, the stuff that but they weren't saying it to the minorities, and they were saying it. The other thing that they found was that they were not showing nearly as much property to minorities as they were to white people. So they were shaping them out on, you know, 50 different houses, and half that number if you were a minority who would come into look. They were steering white people away from certain areas of town that they felt were either integrated, you know, a bunch of different people, different ethnicities living in one area. They were steering them away from that and into all kind of white communities. It was just, again, it was atrocious. It was really just mind-boggling. In this day and age, that kind of stuff was still going on. It was all done, of course, undercover, you know, and so all of the findings were presented to these brokers after the fact. And of course, you know, they didn't, you know, they were on candid camera kind of thing. So they, but it was very telling. And what came of it, the 2 guys that analyzed the data were experts in federal fair housing. One of them actually he started I think it was called the Federal Fair Housing, I don't know, it was an association or something. Again, it was on my lovely slide. I don't have it. See, I can't even function without my slides. Because I just got this yesterday, I knew that you remember the guy?
Yeah. Fred Freiberg, who
Yeah.
co-founded the Fair Housing Justice Center in 2004, and then Robert Schweinum, the Everett H. Metcalf Jr. Professor of Law at University of Kentucky, author of Housing Discrimination Law and Litigation.
And that first guy actually worked on some of the civil rights bills,
Yeah.
some of the civil rights acts that they passed. So I mean, these were the people that were charged with analyzing this data once they got it all in. You know, looking at the questions that were asked, looking at the response that they were getting, these kind of things. And like I said, it was shocking, some of the things that came out of this. And so as a result of this, NAR has come up with this, you know, huge federal fair housing push. You know, I think that. You know, I think that everybody kind of takes for granted or assumes that stuff isn't going on anymore, right? And maybe we're not even necessarily cognizant of what qualifies, right, as something that may be, you know, very discriminatory. And so that's kind of part of what NAR is focusing on, right? Accountability, culture change, and training in order to ensure realtors are doing everything possible to protect housing rights in America. So they're working closely with state associations to ensure that state licensing laws include effective fair housing training requirements and hold real estate agents accountable to their fair housing obligations. You guys, these were realtor members that this was going on with. These were not, somebody said, well, you said yesterday, I'm sure they were all just real estate licensees. I'm sure there wasn't a realtor member among them, and that's not true. They were. I'm not sure they weren't all realtor members, but they were certainly, you know, a whole bunch of realtor members, right? Yeah, I know, it is surprising. It is surprising. So evidently, whatever has been happening is not effective enough, right? And as far as, you know, some of the minority comments that were that harmed the African American communities, this wasn't occurring. This was in the Long Island area, along the seaboard north and New York area. It wasn't down, for example, in the Deep South or in certain other areas that you might have anticipated something, you know, some residual discrimination stuff still hanging around. It was in areas that, you know, we expected everybody to be pretty, you know, up to speed on this stuff. So I think that was also very shocking. They want to launch a public service announcement campaign that affirms NAR's commitment to fair housing and how consumers can report problems. They want to integrate fair housing into all Realtor conferences and engagements to include fair housing themes throughout the May mid-year meetings. Do any of you guys go to May meetings? Not a whole lot of you, a few of you do. Okay, so they're really going to be pushing that at the May meeting, but I'm sure we'll be seeing that in the fall too. Any of you guys go to the annual conference? A few of you guys do. Yeah, they're really great, guys. They're really wonderful. They have some great classes and great speakers, and everyone gets they get great bands. That's really cool too. So I encourage you guys, if at all possible, to attend some of those meetings, but the real push at those are going to be this federal fair housing. They're explore the creation of a voluntary self-testing program in partnership with fair housing organizations as a resource for brokers and others who want confidential reports on agent practices so they can address problems. So you think you don't have problems, right? But there's evidently a way to find out if you have problems. And it's better, guys, to find out like this than to find out when you get sued, right? Or you get a call from the Human Rights Division, or you get a call from the Federal Fair Housing, or HUD, or whatever the case may be. It's better to find out like this. Create more robust fair housing education, including unconscious bias training and education on how the actions of realtors shape communities. Again, I think a lot of the times, even if you look at this this article, which I will put on the legal resources page so that you guys can read it because it's really fascinating. I don't think necessarily these are awful, terrible, evil, you know, bigots and racists and these kind of things. I think they don't realize a lot of times what they're doing or how it fits into federal fair housing laws. So it's interesting to read the article and see the approach that NAR is taking in their training, which will be coming out this year, on how to address these things. Because like it says, you know, I think a lot of this is unconscious. It's not an intentional. They don't realize what they're saying is discriminatory. And so I think that it's going to be a great campaign. It's going to be nationwide and profile leaders who exemplify the best fair housing practices and workplace diversity. And they're going to be developing a whole lot of materials that you could use in your offices, QBs, for example, for your training programs and things like that. So I will put the article available on nmrealtor.com. I will also make sure that the PowerPoint that gets posted is the PowerPoint that has all that kind of summarizes it for you. Okay, because there's some really interesting stats there.